Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the Marching Men of Michigan. Band, take the field.
There is no sound in the world comparable to the sound of Michigan football, and that's what this album is all about. We are going to span 70 years of Wolverine football today, revisiting the seasons of 1902, 42, 48, 1950, and 1969. These games were selected as 5 of the greatest games ever played by a University of Michigan football team. Our first stop back in time takes us to January 1st, 1902, the site Pasadena, California. Let's go to the top row of the bleachers and Bob Ufer.
Good afternoon, football fans. It's Michigan versus Stanford in the first Rose Bowl game in history. This game brings together 2 of the finest football teams in the country, both unbeaten during the past season. The Wolverines have some incredible statistics going for them this year. In 10 regular season games, Michigan has scored 501 points while giving up a grand total of 0. The longest run by an opponent through the entire season has been all of 12 yards, and the deepest enemy penetration has only been to Michigan's 35-yard line. A gentleman by the name of Fielding H. Yost is in his first year as Michigan's head coach, and from the very first practice back at Whitmore Lake in Michigan last fall, there was a new cry for the Wolverines: hurry up, and if you can't hurry up, then make way for someone who can. The Wolverines this season set new standards for being in top physical condition. They simply overwhelmed the opposition. For example, listen to these scores. Michigan 107, Iowa nothing. Michigan 86-0 over Ohio State. But let's leave the background just a moment and take a quick look around us right now. You know, this tournament committee never anticipated the huge crowd that has jammed its way into Fiesta Park here in Pasadena this afternoon. It's incredible, but they only built stands for 1,000 people, and would you believe right now, over 9,100 football fans have come through the one gate or over the fences, and at the moment they're standing 30 and 40 deep around the entire playing field. The playing surface itself is very dusty and dry at the moment, since it's actually a skin baseball diamond. But right now, both teams are all set to go. Captain White of Michigan has just won the toss of the coin. He's indicating that he'll defend a southern goal with the wind at his back, and so we're all set for the opening kickoff of the first Rose Bowl game in history. Remember, a touchdown is 5 points, an extra point 1, a field goal is 5 points, the field's 110 yards long, the goalposts are on the goal lines, and each team has 3 downs to go 5 yards for a first down. Traeger is all set to kick off for Stanford. The fans are on their feet. The referee blows his whistle. The kick is a high end-over-end kick coming down and taken by Heston to the Wolverine 5. He's in the middle of a solid Michigan phalanx. They move upfield over the 10 to the 15. They go 18 yards before the phalanx is finally broken up at the 23. Heston peels away in his own and is really upended on a beautiful hip-high tackle by Roosevelt of Stanford at the Wolverine 30. And so, football fans, the ball game is underway. The first Rose Bowl game in history, Michigan versus Stanford. Heston was brought down by Roosevelt, and if that name sounds familiar, it certainly should. He's the nephew of Teddy Roosevelt, the president of our country.
The team struggled in a tight defensive battle for the first 23 minutes. Then in 11 plays, Michigan, with Heston, Snow, and Herrnstein carrying the ball, moved to the Stanford 5-yard line, where we pick up the action with Bob Ufer.
Michigan on the Stanford 5, 2nd and 3 for the first down. No score in the ball game. Hang on to your bowlers. Quarterback Boss Weeks, 2.5 yards directly behind center, barking out signals. Michigan has a 6-man line. 5 men in the backfield, 4 of them in a tandem, veered to the right. The ball snapped to quarterback Weeks. He hands the ball to Snow. Snow gets a block. He's at the 3-yard line. He's running up the back of one of his own Michigan linemen and dives over 2 Stanford men into the big red end zone. TD Michigan, 5 big ones. The Wolverines lead 5-0. The teams are now lining up immediately for the extra point at the exact spot on the goal line where Snow just scored. It's snapped. It's drop kicked by Bruce Shorts. It's on a slight angle. It's good. Michigan leads 6-0. 88 yards in 7 plays for the first score in this first Rose Bowl game. The Wolverines are coming back upfield.
After an exchange of punts, Sweely converted on a 12-yard field goal to give Michigan an 11-0 lead. A few minutes later, Stanford punted to the 55-yard line or the midfield stripe. It's now 3rd down and a punting situation for Michigan. Sweely has just punted as we rejoin Bob.
Sweely's punt is a good one. Fisher of Stanford takes it in at the 16, cuts back in, and he's hit by a whole host of Wolverine tacklers. He fumbles the ball. Curtis Redden, Michigan's big left end, scoops up the pigskin at the Stanford 20. He's hit at the 10. He's still on his feet, but barely, and he sees just in front of him Heston, Michigan's halfback. He grabs the handle-like pocket on the back of Heston's pants, and Heston drags Redden with the ball, along with the Stanford tackler, right on into the big red and white end zone. TD, Michigan, and the Wolverines lead Stanford 16-0 with 1 minute left in the first half. It's halftime here at Pasadena, but you know they are going to have to change some of these football rules. It's brutal, the things they get away with out there before the ball's blown dead. For example, on many plays here in the first half, the ball carrier, although he was down and he was still moving, and then he was either pulled, shoved, or thrown for an additional 3 to 5 yards before he's rendered almost unconscious. It could easily be called legalized murder. Do you football fans realize that last fall 19 players were killed in football alone around the country? Considering what I've just said, and the fact that the temperature has just gone up to 95 degrees here in California, can you believe Michigan is still using the same 11 men who started the game 35 playing minutes ago? These Wolverines are tough. It said they chew up cement and spit out sidewalks. Well, we're all set for the second half. Michigan's set to kick off. Sweely approaches the pigskin. He kicks. It's a low kick. Hits on the Stanford 30. Bounces to the 24. Tarpley picks it up. He's back up to the 30. He's hit by Wilson of Michigan. He fumbles the ball. Heston picks it up at the Stanford 28. Cuts cross field at the 25 to the 20. And is hit from behind on the 18-yard line by Cooper. And so the Wolverines, 1st and 5 on the Stanford 18-yard line. They lead 17-0. Opening series of downs here in the second half of the first Rose Bowl game. Quarterback Boss Weeks barking out signals. Sub-man unbalanced line. Michigan's backfield has a quarterback back of center with a 3-man tandem veered to the right. The ball is snapped to Weeks. He moves to the right, hands off to Snow. Snow's at the 15. He picks up 2 blockers. They lock arms, and Michigan's flying wedge is knocking those would-be Stanford tacklers fanning over tin cups as a 3-man Michigan wedge rambles right on into the Stanford end zone. Touchdown Michigan as Snow scores his second TD of the afternoon, and Michigan leads 22-0. They're midway into the third quarter right now, and about all you can say for the Big Red is that Stanford lost the toss of the coin to start this ball game, and they've grown progressively worse all afternoon.
Michigan and the Heat continued to wear Stanford down as Willie Heston returned a Stanford punt 55 yards for a touchdown. Snow scored 3 more touchdowns for Michigan. All 3 were the pulling, pushing, shoving variety, and midway through the fourth quarter with Michigan leading 44-0, the Wolverines are again moving deep into Stanford territory, and here's Bob.
1st and 5 on the Big Red 15-yard line. Quarterback Weeks of Michigan, 2.5 yards behind center, takes a snap, gives to Herrnstein, who really lowers the boom as he hits the center of that Stanford line, and those Indians are falling like autumn leaves. Herrnstein to the 10. He's to the 5. He's hit by 3 Indians at the Stanford 4. Herrnstein's been driven to the ground, but he keeps right on crawling into the end zone as Michigan scores the 8th touchdown of the afternoon to make the score 49-0. Michigan's offensive strength today has been awesome and fantastic. 5 TDs by Neil Snow, who has just been voted the outstanding player of the Rose Bowl. It's unbelievable, but with 8 minutes left, the Wolverines are still using the same 11 men who started this ball game. And Stanford has used 23 men, and they all look utterly exhausted. Michigan's getting set to kick off. But wait a minute. Captain Bill Fisher of the Indians is nodding toward that Stanford bench. Coach Slacker, with utter dejection written all over his face, solemnly nods back. Coach Yost throws back his head with that big West Virginia hurry-up smile of his and very benevolently nods toward the Stanford coach. The referee, who was also in on that conversation, picks up the ball. He signals, that's it. That's all there is. There isn't anymore. Stanford has thrown in the towel with 8 minutes left in the ball game. The final score here this afternoon in the beautiful California sunshine in the first Rose Bowl game ever played, January 1st, 1902, Michigan 49, Stanford 0.